Chasing thunderstorms is kind of the holy grail when it comes to sound recording. Any sound designer who's worked for any amount of time in this world knows that designing thunderstorms and using thunder as sound design elements is an art unto itself. Recording those things is super difficult. If you've ever tried to record weather events, you know it's just, it's the hardest thing you can try and record pretty much. My name is Matthew Mikkelsen. I'm a nature sound recordist and a sound designer. I love that sound is a kind of a mixture of an art and a science. I get to use both parts of my brain when I'm working in sound, and I've always loved being outside. So it was kind of a natural progression that led me to recording the sounds of nature and the outdoors. I've been producing sound libraries now independently for about 7 or 8 years. I've worked on a lot of other libraries. Like I've worked with Gordon Hempton on some of his libraries. I've consulted with a lot of other people on producing their own libraries. But yeah, so I've been putting out these types of libraries, these ORTF 3D surround sound libraries since 2018. I've been recording thunderstorms specifically since, I think my first trip was 2018 or 2019, specifically to go chase thunderstorms. I had a few years where I didn't come back from these trips with much. That's the thing about recording nature is you can't force it to happen. And sometimes the weather patterns don't cooperate and don't set up the right way. Oftentimes we're in the wrong area. So we misjudge the track of a storm and we kind of miss it and just get distant material. So there was a lot of years where we came back relatively empty-handed. One of the things that's really special about this sound library in particular is that these are all real sounds of thunder in environments and storms in environments. That allows the sound designers to hear how these things play out in nature without any added effects or design or anything like that, and incorporate all those sounds into their mixes. There's nothing dramatic here. And when I say dramatic, it hasn't been dramatized, but nature in itself is dramatic. So you get to hear these events as they play out in nature as inspiration and as an asset for you in your work. And I think that that's a really special way to design sound, is using these files not only as a reference for what it sounds like, but also as material to use in the creation of, your projects. One of the things that's really special about the libraries that Boom is releasing is that they're recorded with the Schoeps ORTF 3D, which is just a phenomenal system to use. The ORTF 3D gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of how you implement that sound in a mix or in a design, in terms of different formats, different uses. You can easily pull a beautiful stereo file from it. You can also implement those recordings in ambisonics mixes, in Dolby Atmos mixes. So there's a lot of flexibility in post for this microphone system. And it's 8 Schoeps microphones. So it's just sonically, it's a beautiful, beautiful system to work with. This library contains a lot of different sounds, I would say, and it really covers the arc of these storms. So at the beginning of the storms, you might have some wind, and the birds are chirping, and there's insect activity. Once the storm is approaching, you hear the storm as it starts to come closer, and the birds take shelter, and the insects stop chirping. And then oftentimes the wind dies down and you have this dry thunder. And then you get rain and you get hail and you get wind-driven rain and heavy updraft winds from some of these storms. I really tried my best to include every aspect of these storms in this library. So you have everything from distant, faint thunder with bird song and breeze and insects, all the way to directly overhead lightning strike, isolated for a sound design element. One of the things I really love about this library is that it is real. And so it is useful for sound designers who are building a storm sequence and they need these big dramatic events that they're using to, formulate an event that's happening in their project. But also, I think this library can be used in a lot of other ways that maybe other libraries couldn't be, in things like museums or plays, or especially like natural history and documentary. I think these libraries really sing when you use them in nonfiction production, because these are real places. These are real recordings. There's nothing dramatized necessarily already. So these are accurate place-based recordings, unlike a lot of the libraries that we as sound designers need to use sometimes. I hope people have an emotional reaction to these sounds. I think as sound designers, our craft revolves around evoking emotion. I can listen to a recording and think, wow, that's a cool recording. But if it doesn't do something to me, if it doesn't make me feel a certain way, I don't know how useful it is. So I hope that when people hear these sounds, it does evoke emotion. It evokes that kind of, that feeling that you get when you're in a place and experiencing something. And that's what we have strived to do with all of these ORTF 3D libraries, is make these sounds emotional.